Okay, so I want to talk about CNN bias against Donald Trump. Now, before anyone who's critical of Trump reacts to that in a negative way, let me be very clear in this disclaimer. I am not a supporter of Donald Trump. I repeat, I am not a supporter of Donald Trump, and I think I've made it abundantly clear in a few videos that I'm very critical of Trump. The man is blatantly unfit for the White House. Let me make it also clear that this is not an endorsement of Trump's view that there's a media vendetta against him. Although I'm going to argue in this video, I believe CNN is extremely biased. That's not to vindicate Trump saying that all of his problems is the fault of the media. I think he definitely shoots himself in the foot sometimes. And he, let's say, scores own goals. There's things that Donald Trump has said and done, and I'm not just talking about the recent video, I'm talking about a very, very long list of things that are indefensible. I personally think what he said the other day about terminally ill people was even worse in this video that it's emerged. It's curious actually, that's less of a controversy than the video about crude statements on women. There are people defending it and saying, well, people read 50 Shades of Grey and etc. Look, I think Trump is unfit for the White House, that's my view. But this video isn't really about that. What I want to talk about is the blatant bias that's coming from CNN. And they're not even trying to hide it anymore. That's the thing, they're not even attempting to hide it. I think this is a very serious problem, and I'm saying this as someone who is critical of Trump. Every hour of every day over the last week, CNN has been posting and reposting um, items that are anti-Trump. Now, these are not just reporting things as facts. For example, Donald Trump is in hot water over this controversial video. I wouldn't really have a problem with that because that is, every network's reporting it. But I am starting to really see that there is a blatant anti-Trump agenda coming from CNN, and I've noticed this for some time, and I'm not the only one. Of course, Trump supporters have long said that, as you would expect. But even Clinton supporters have to acknowledge that there is something going on here that goes beyond simply reporting the news. I mean, they have just published a report about Carly Simon, the singer, re-releasing her famous song "You're So Vain" to attack Trump. In one of the last reports, it was Robert De Niro laying into Trump. And yet another report, it was another celebrity laying into Trump. And some British networks are doing this as well. Channel 4, to a lesser extent, but Channel 4 has come out with, um, forget the guy's name now, but a B-list actor who is criticising Trump. There's nothing original about this. And quite frankly, I find it very patronising. Firstly, celebrities are entitled to the view. They're as entitled as anyone else to voice their political opinions. But what I resent is this notion that just because a certain actor says they don't like Trump, that's somehow supposed to be important to the voting public. It is not. I don't care how good an actor they are or, how admired they are. It's irrelevant. It's certainly not original. Um, so this thing about Robert De Niro, saying he wants to punch Trump in the face, yeah, it makes interesting viewing, but it's not original. And there's something very patronising about these very privileged people in Hollywood thinking that they, or even if it's not them themselves, the media insinuates that their opinion should somehow influence votes. They're entitled to their opinion, but it shouldn't be held up as if it's important, because it really isn't. They're paid to act and to be entertainers, and that is it. Um, if Robert De Niro wants to get that political, then he should stand for office. I do think it's problematic when celebrities are held up to pontificate in that way. Like they should teach us mere mortals about how to vote and so on. Obviously, I can't vote in British, but the point I'm making is there's something very condescending about that. I'm not saying actors can't be involved in politics. I'm just saying that they are just opinions, and sometimes the media presents it like you get these very irritating sort of sound bites and clickbait things like "Watch celebrity A shut down Donald Trump's opinion," like it matters. Um, that just really irritates me. Um, but this has been a long-standing theme with CNN, and I still respect CNN in some regards. I think, for example, the Freedom Project, I respect that. I think it's a worthwhile thing where they, hold up people who are doing helping communities all over the world. That's good. But they really, really damage their credibility when they're so blatantly biased against one candidate and so reluctant to criticize another, Hillary Clinton. So when Trump supporters say call it the Clinton News Network, it's quite hard to really say that it isn't because the bias is so abundantly obvious. Very, very occasionally they'll say something questioning Clinton, but you get the impression they're only doing it to deflect criticism. And you see, it isn't just about attacking Trump and being pro Clinton, it's also the fact that there is more important things going on. Of course, the character of someone running for the most powerful job in the world is important, but what about the 900 people who've died in Haiti? I would have thought that was more important than Carly Simon attacking Donald Trump. And it's pathetic. And this is a lot more important. When this election cycle is over, Donald Trump's going to be history. At this point, it looks almost impossible that he's going to win this. The Republicans are fleeing from him. They're even seriously talking about looking at the rules, possibly make Mike Pence a candidate. I don't think that'll happen because of the legalities of it and the fact people have already voted. But I think at this point, it's very hard to conceive Donald Trump winning the general election. So, it's going to be history. But CNN isn't going to go anywhere. Someone said that media networks are a sort of dictatorship. When you think about the sort of power that they have, it's not actually far off the mark. This is something I think is extremely, extremely important. And the arrogance of media hacks when they sit around tables and pontificate, and this is something I've noticed, particularly about both American media and in Britain, Sky News. Um, we are seeing a phenomenon where journalists who are meant to be reporting the news are becoming the news, and they're blatantly they're letting their egos do the talking. I mean, I watch election coverage. I find it interesting, but I also find it slightly irritating when I see, and you see it on both Fox and CNN. Fox likes to say it's not mainstream media. Of course it is. Um, it's just they're pro-Republican. But the point is, you get these media hacks sitting around and basically blabbering away their own opinions, and they're just letting their egos get driven away. And it's not that they don't say anything valid, but they clearly love the sound of their own voice. These people are supposed to be journalists, and the amount of opinion, the amount of self-congratulatory sort of commentary that is going on, it seems to me that it's a lot more about their own ego than about discussing the serious issues of the day. I might be wrong about that, but that is the impression I get. And it is starting to happen in Britain now as well, especially with Sky News, with the likes of Kate Burley and Adam Bolton and others. I think it's bad for politics. Job of journalists is to hold the powerful to account, so they should ask tough questions and scrutinise those in power. But there is far too much ego at play, and we're seeing this all the time. Notwithstanding the fact they get huge salaries, it's a real problem, I think, for democracy. That's not to say I have any sympathy with Donald Trump. I believe he's shot himself in the foot on countless occasions, and I don't believe his sort of plea, "oh, the media is picking on me." It's not about that. I mean, to be quite honest, Trump is such a disastrous candidate that CNN doesn't even have to do this. CNN could try and be, they could play it fair and be balanced, and Donald Trump would still be a disaster. But I do think this is problematic because this indicates that they could do this again in the next election cycle. And I think it's a complete disgrace. Regardless of what people think of Donald Trump, if you're a true Democrat, you should be concerned about this because when they're so blatantly biased towards one candidate over another, that's problematic for democracy. And the fact of the matter is, if you look at their newsfeed on Facebook, check it out. Every other post is about some celebrity attacking Donald Trump. It's getting boring now. And this is not coming from a point of view of sympathy for Trump. It's just that the bias is so blatantly obvious. And CNN is really, really letting itself down. I believe CNN does have good journalists, and I believe it does have quality journalism. But they're really, really dragging their reputation through the dirt. And the arrogance that is there is clear because they do not have anyone responding to the criticism. When you have a thread and it's all criticism about their bias and you don't have anybody from CNN responding to it, that indicates to me that they simply don't care. The BBC can be extremely biased as well, but at least the BBC has hacks who sort of reply and, respond to the criticism. CNN doesn't even care. That's not that Fox News is any better. I mean, Fox News kind of like to pat themselves on the back and say, oh, we're fair and balanced. No, they're not. Fox News has a blatantly pro-conservative angle, and I don't think they can rationally say that they don't. I find it amusing when they try to say that they're not mainstream media. They are mainstream media. Of course they are. They get millions of views. They're a major network. They may be more recent than CNN. They may have been set up as a counter to CNN, but they are mainstream media. The truth is, there is no major network out there that can truly call itself neutral. And that's really sad. Maybe it's naive to expect that wherever there is a human factor, you're going to have complete neutrality. But I really think this is problematic. And it goes well beyond Donald Trump. This is something that is institutional in the media. And it's a complete and utter disgrace. CNN should have a good hard look at itself after this election. I even will go so far as to say there should be, I don't know if in the States there's some sort of media watchdog. In Britain we have something called Ofcom, which sort of investigates complaints against the media. I think it's a very good principle because the problem is you can't really trust them to monitor themselves. That's like kind of allowing the fox to guard the chickens. They simply can't be trusted. So if CNN's asked to kind of internally monitor themselves, they won't do it. Nor will Fox. You need an independent body to scrutinise these people and say when you're being blatantly biased, you're going to have to be held to account for that. Because in a democracy, it isn't just politicians who should be held to account. It should be everyone in a position of power. Judges, generals, and yes, media executives. Because frankly, I would argue in democracies, it isn't politicians who have the bulk of power. It is these media conglomerates. And it is a major, major issue. Major. In fact, I cannot even, no words can exaggerate how powerful the collective media is. And I'm not saying their influence is entirely bad, but I am making the point that they're extremely powerful, and far too often that power is being abused for reasons like this. Okay, forget Donald Trump, it's not even about that. Although there is this bias in terms of the way they're reporting this. What I'm arguing here is not necessary to report every single time every celebrity says something negative about Trump. What are they trying to do here? Are they really trying to turn Trump supporters off him? Because it is getting boring now, it really is. So let me know your thoughts. Once again, this has nothing to do with being sympathetic to Trump. I've no sympathy with him. I think he's an obnoxious character, and I think he really has, dug a big hole for himself. But the bias of CNN is a complete and utter disgrace, and they don't even care. The arrogance of CNN is also a disgrace.